All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Tuesday, September 30th on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. Back getting ready for the game day weekend for the Texas Longhorns as they prepare for the Florida Gators on the road in the first conference game of the season for Texas. They're the only SEC team who has not played a conference opponent yet this year. If you look on the standings, they're the only team that sits 0-0 in the SEC standings. And so Texas will get their first opportunity at the Swamp this weekend. Florida also coming off of a bye week as well. So two teams that are going to have extra rest going into this game. And Jake and I definitely really looking forward to it, as you should be as well. Some news on the injury return front from transfer wide receiver from Stanford, Emmet Mosley, returns to practice. So does that mean he plays Florida? We don't really know. Does that mean he's on a snap count? We don't really know. Does that mean that the wide receiver group is getting some reinforcements, hopefully within the next couple of weeks? I think so. And so that should pay dividends because what he does is more than just catching passes, at wide receiver, at wide out. And so he does a lot more. But Jake, this is at least encouraging news, knowing that Emmet Mosley exists and he is alive and well, and he's on the team. So that's good.
Yeah, and it's a needed addition as well. They need some. He will bring. It'll just add so much more depth to this wide receiver room, where you're not just instantly relying on true freshmen. You look at his tape at Stanford, and what he will bring is someone who's really good at finding holes in the zone, which is something that I think this wide receiver group has struggled with a little bit at times. He's also really good at blocking. And he's just a really good route runner. He's not going to amaze you with his speed. He's quick. He's not slow by any means as well. But he's not like a burner. He's not a Matthew Golden or an Isaiah Bond or
I think he's a good route runner to where he can get open, but he doesn't really rely on his speed to do that.
Yeah, no, he will probably be the best route runner on the roster. Right, immediately when he comes in. And so the only thing you worry about is with him being a transfer and being injured a lot, really not practicing until this point. Will he be ready to take on snaps? And that's kind of the question that remains to be seen. There hasn't been much reporting on the injury, and just it was kind of becoming a joke of, does he exist? Is he real? Obviously now we know he's real. He was in practice. He was practicing.
We've seen him in a Longhorn gear, at least practice gear.
Yes. So hopefully he can be a really good addition for this team, because wide receiver blocking is important in every scheme. But it really opens up Sark's playbook, because if you don't have wide receiver blocking, you can't do those quick screens. And guess what would be really good for this offense to have? A quick toss out to Wingo where he can take it for, 5-6 yards as an extension of the run game and have the potential to break it even longer. Wingo is the biggest playmaker explosivity wise on this offense, and I don't think it's particularly close. Moore is right there as well. Thank you. That's a big word for me. I like slowed down. I slowed down before I said it to make sure I said it right.
Like it. I'm going to start using that. He's the biggest play threat we have in terms of explosivity. I like instead of just he's our most explosive player. I like the way you said it better.
Thank you. I'll take the rare compliment from you. I don't get many.
It just makes it.
I think that's like my third in our 20 years of knowing each other. But yeah, he really is. He is the biggest burner in terms of speed. He can do the most with yards after catch. Not to say that there's no one else who can make plays, but he has that different level. Whenever he touches the ball, it's always like, whoa, that's a different level of burst. So all that just to say, Mosley being out there can help with that, because him and DeAndre Moore are good blockers. You throw them out there with Wingo.
He's willing to do the dirty work. And that's not just in the screen game like Jake's talking about in terms of freeing up wide receivers. It's going to help on outside runs. It's going to help on the running game. It's going to just help a lot of other things. Again, that's if he can get on the field, because he's got to learn the playbook. He's got to learn the system. He's got to get back to game speed. He's probably not in game shape, quite frankly. And that's just going to take a couple of weeks to just get back into the midseason form that the rest of the team is at currently.
Yeah, and so that'll be the quick. We'll keep track of how many snaps he has against Florida, and that'll be a good gauge to see where he's starting out. If he's getting 55-60% of the snaps right away. I know it's not a huge number, but if he's getting that game one coming off all these injuries, you're going to be feeling pretty good about what he's going to be able to produce for you early on. And that would be big because they're going to need guys like him. These next two games are really, and I know people are sleeping on Florida. I really wouldn't. They're not just, you're going to have a hard time just blowing them out.
Jake, I think Texas is going to have a tough time this season just blowing teams out. Like, is it possible? Yeah, any team on any given Saturday can just have it and they have the talent to just blow anybody out.
But when another team has an elite defense, it's hard to blow out those teams. And Florida hasn't. I know they ended up losing by quite a bit to Miami. That game was competitive until the fourth quarter.
Yeah, same with LSU.
That was a one-score game going into the fourth quarter against LSU. Lagway threw 5 interceptions, including a pick 6, and they lost by 10.
Yeah,
their defense is good.
It's
very good.
And LSU's offense probably not that great. We saw that this weekend. But again, it's just
you're just spoiled. You're just spoiled. Stop asking me about running the football. We won the game.
That's all that matters is we won. You're just spoiled as an LSU fan who's won.
And then your defense holds Ole Miss to 24 and you
years.
lose.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm excited to have Emmet Mosley back. And again, if he's got 20% of the snaps this weekend and we just get to see him on the field a couple times, that's fine with me. Maybe throw him like a quick screen or just, get him the ball, get him a touch just to kind of see where he's at and how comfortable he feels and just let him get hit. I think sometimes football players just need to get hit sometimes. And then it kind of just is like, all right, I'm back. I'm good to go. So anyway, Jake, let's go ahead and recap week 5 and talk about a lot of these games. This may have been
real quick before we recap something I didn't talk with you about before the podcast, but I just remembered. Texas baseball did scrimmage Texas Tech this weekend in Round Rock. They played 12 innings and Texas baseball won 9-3. Everything I've read about it sounds like this roster looks like the real deal. Texas Tech typically is a pretty decent baseball program. So you got to be feeling pretty good about that. Also 3 runs in 12 innings. That's good stuff from the pitching staff. So just a very short, quick update on the front of Texas baseball, very early, but
while we're on it, volleyball still doing great. Still kind of dominating the competition. They've had the most disgusting pre-conference, non-conference schedule. And so whether that be, tournaments or whatever that is, Texas volleyball looks like they're ready to go back on a national championship run.
Yeah. 10-0 now, just took down number 21 Missouri, and they 3-0, and then they also 3-0'd Vanderbilt. So 2-0 in SEC play. By far the most ranked wins in the country, I believe. It's kind of a joke. I don't think they're number 1 right now.
I think they were number 2 last time I saw them. It's kind of a joke that they're not.
It's just the not wanting to move the preseason number 1 in Nebraska, but the resume from Texas volleyball speaks for itself.
Yeah. Hey, Jake, let's go ahead and hear from our incredible sponsors at Underdog, and then I think that'll be a great segue for us to get into the recap of week 5, and we'll talk about some of our entries that we made when we do that. Football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. Download the app today and sign up with promo code HORNS to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code HORNS. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make picks, win money. Jake, I want to let's start with Friday's game, Florida State Seminoles. I had my entry. I went 3-2 this week. I didn't love a ton of games in terms of the numbers. I just thought all the entries were just really well placed, and I'm just like, man, I just don't feel 100% confident one way or the other. And it was that kind of weekend. The week of week 5 kind of played out that way. So I'm kind of glad I did as well as I did. But I went 3-2. Florida State, I had a team pick of 7.5. They obviously did not cover that because they lost, and we had the fastest, most dangerous looking field storming in the history of college football from Virginia. We'll get into that momentarily. And And then I did have my Notre Dame Arkansas pick that I had, really throughout going into week 5. I had Jeremiah Love lower than 103 yards. He only had 57, so hit that one. Jadarian Price, I had higher than 61 rushing yards. He hit that with 86. And then Taylon Green. This is where it all fell apart. I had higher than 310 total yardage. He had 288. He was so close. A little bit more garbage time yardage would have been nice. But Notre Dame dominating that game 56-13, just ugly. And then my 3 wins that I felt really good about going into it. I had Auburn taking the spread at 6.5. They got that one. Mississippi State, 7.5 point dogs. They stayed within 6 there, took that game into overtime. And then Oregon Ducks outright win with that one. So had a pretty decent weekend in terms of my entries for week 5. Again, it was crazy. I stayed away from ones that I didn't like, and I'm kind of glad I did.
Yeah, it's a shame in here in Kansas City I don't have the lines on the game on Underdog. I think it's because actual sports gambling is legal here,
Sure.
and so it's not allowed. Because entry-wise with Underdog, I did not do well this weekend, and that's all we need to say about it. I was 0-2, or no, 0-3 on college football. Missed all of them by 1. And yeah, it just wasn't a solid weekend for me on the entry front, but that's okay. We load back up, we recoup, we're facing a little adversity. And I did really well when it came to picking the game. So and
We're
so
coming
I'll
off
take
a bye
that,
week,
which
Jake.
we'll get into.
We're coming off a bye week.
Yeah, I was apparently on a bye week this week, and I lost to the bye week.
Yeah, that's fine. It does happen. All right,
but with Underdog, all it takes is just 1 win. With the odds you get, and you're right. I'm still up for the year through Underdog,
and
that's what matters.
That's what matters.
Must be 18 and up, 19 and up in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 and up, and in Colorado for some games, 21 and up in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and must be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-369.
All right, Jake, let's go ahead and recap week 5. What a week of college football this was. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this was the best week. And that's a lot of reason why is because we're like fully into conference play now. And these games are just going to step it up a notch. Let's start on Friday night. Florida State upset on the road against Virginia, and Virginia waited until the ball barely touched a blade of grass on that incomplete pass into the end zone in a double overtime to storm the field. I thought their own player was going to get hurt. Nonetheless, the Florida State guy who was just trampled. Again, just give it a little bit of breathing room to storm, but I think their stands are also like field level. They're like on the field. So all they have to do is basically
they have a standing area in that end zone, I believe, if I remember seeing correctly. But what an environment for Virginia to put out.
Yeah.
Really kind of showing they've been a little bit hungry to be decent at football again. You know, they used to be a decent program. They would be ranked.
Virginia Tech used to mean something, and
yeah,
it hasn't
they'd
in a
both
while.
be ranked top 25. Virginia Tech was typically better, but Virginia would be right there, in the top 25 a lot, and they've just been horrible for so long. Weird thing this year is their one loss is to NC State, which team you'd expect them to beat based off this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the crazy, and it just goes to show you how hard winning on the road is in college football. Especially sometimes if you're overlooking the team.
A lot of those games this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of those games this weekend. And it's why I'll never put disrespect on a road win, especially road conference win. And we'll get to some of those games that happened on Saturday. But luckily, I forgot to put in my bet for this game because I was going to bet Florida State. And I'm happy that I forgot it was Friday until it was, I think, middle of the first quarter, and I checked ESPN. I was like, oh, I need to turn this on. I forgot. I just blanked on that. But yeah,
Friday night game sneak up on you.
What a night Friday night was, because Arizona State TCU as well was really good. But on the field storming, that was the most violent field storming I've ever seen. Just from also they got in Mike Norvell's face and Castellanos' face for flipping them off. Which if you do that, you're a loser. By the way, just celebrate. You don't gotta. It's not your job. We've talked about how we're fans of taunting. That's between the players on the field. That's not for fans to do when you're storming the field.
I'm all for fans heckling in the stands, but there should be no contact. There should be no getting into the losing quarterback's face. And I completely agree. There's a lot of takes out there that Castellanos should be able to have at least one swing. You get one swing, however you connect on it. That's how you connect on it. You get to go in the locker room with no consequences whatsoever. Wipe your hands clean of it. But yeah, no, I do think the double bird in the face of the losing quarterback, whenever he played really well, it wasn't his fault that Florida State lost that game. Castellanos is a really good ball player, but yeah, no, I don't love that, but man, I do love a good field storming. I'm not against field storms. I think the player or the fans should be having fun. They should have an impact on the game like they obviously did in that game, given Florida State everything they had. So, but yeah, that's really all I have on it. I think Florida State, Jake, that really sets up the ACC for it to be extremely interesting. And now Miami fully in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it's Miami, and then who else is going to be there? I would still probably favor Florida State. Everyone's going to jump.
I think Miami is vulnerable to a loss in conference play, and Florida State could be their wake up call, and they say no more, and they just move on from this.
Yeah, I mean that Miami at Florida State game is going to be huge, and that's going to be. It is. For some reason, I would have thought game day would go there. Game day's going to Alabama Vanderbilt, which is a great game.
It's fun.
But I can't wait to watch this Florida State Miami game because Florida State's going to come fired up for the game. I think it was a look ahead game for Florida State, and they fell into that trap. And it's a tale as old as time. And it happens to every program. It's happened to Texas in the past. It's happened to Alabama's about the only one you haven't seen succumb to it under Nick Saban, but
under Saban. Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, well, last year they didn't have a great year. They had a couple look aheads. But no, Jake, I'm completely with you, man. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some other games real quickly. Like you said, TCU Arizona State was a really good one. Don't want to spend too much time on it though. Let's go ahead and jump into Auburn, Texas A&M. I think Jackson Arnold is just not a good quarterback. He's holding that program back so much.
Before the season, there was talk of them playing three quarterbacks. I don't understand how, if that was even tossed around, that they don't have one they're comfortable playing over Jackson Arnold. It's just a truth at this point that Jackson Arnold is just not a good quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm
not 100% sold that. And this game, again, the Auburn game, you and I were talking briefly before we jumped on air, is that beating Auburn doesn't feel like it shouldn't feel like it's that big of a thing. It always kind of holds a little bit of weight of, oh, you beat Auburn. But this program is so down right now that beating Auburn shouldn't really be this big like milestone victory, especially whenever you're, at home against them. Where having to go back-to-back weeks to Norman and then to College Station, that's a tough stretch of road games for Auburn. But I just think that, the Oklahoma win where, they really shouldn't have because of a missed call from the referees. And then A&M beating them by 6 in this game just it shouldn't feel great for A&M or Oklahoma to come away with Auburn wins over the last 2 weeks is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think A&M played better against Auburn than OU did. I thought the OU Auburn game looked like pretty even as far as the two teams going against each other. A&M did kind of dominate this game on the stat sheet. They had 414 yards to Auburn's 177. A&M, they had 3 touchdowns taken off the board from penalties. They had 13 penalties for 119 yards, by the way, did A&M. But they had several touchdowns taken down, and then they had the pick that was almost a pick 6 that led to Auburn's only touchdown was because of essentially a pick 6. It got them first and goal from inside the 5.
Right.
And so yeah, it makes me even less sold on Oklahoma. I still think Oklahoma's defense is really good, but I think A&M's at least earned a little bit The win at Notre Dame is a good win. Notre Dame thrashed Arkansas this weekend. Granted, Arkansas is not very good, but still, I'm not as sold as the country because I think they're both going to be top 5 when the rankings come out. And I'm definitely not that sold on them. But the great thing is Texas gets to prove that wrong. And so hopefully that's what happens.
Georgia Tech Wake Forest was a really good one, Jake. Overtime game, had to come from behind. They were down 17-3 at halftime. Georgia Tech was forced overtime, came back and won 30-29 over Wake Forest. And there were some, very few, but there were some in terms of it being upset week and upset alerts. They had this Wake Forest team because the Demon Deacons always feel like they kind of rear their heads around at some point in the season, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity for them to do so. They come up just short, but your Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, I'm going to call them your
cardiac Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, I'm having you claim them this year. Your Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets come away with another overtime win.
Yeah, also some of the worst helmets I've ever seen in Wake Forest. I don't know if you saw them.
I don't know,
but they just said Wake in Times New Roman numerals, and they were chrome. I don't understand why they just didn't do their WF logo or do something cool with their Deacon. Worst helmets I've ever seen in college football. They were so lame. But that was Georgia Tech's, I think it was either tied or was their largest comeback in school. It was their largest comeback in school history, which kind of surprising. 17's not, it's a lot, but it's not some unheard amount.
I mean, but they've obviously lost a lot of games where they were down by more points. They just hadn't come back and won those games. And so,
yes.
But I'm just clarifying for the audience. But yeah, no, Georgia Tech stays alive. Again, they're 5-0, Jake. We didn't really mention them along with Miami. But right now it's Georgia Tech, Miami.
I think it's because they've looked shaky. And now that win over Clemson is
not that great looking.
No, I mean, it's not any better than their win over Colorado at this point, honestly. Clemson's a bad football team.
Yeah.
And so, but Georgia Tech, they like taking these games down to the wire.
I also don't think that they have a recipe to like blow teams out because they rely on Haynes King as a runner. They rely on their running game. They don't have much of a passing game. And so if they're going to win these types of games, it's going to have to look not like overtime coming back from 17 points down sort of thing, but it is going to have to look a certain type of way. And that doesn't always mean we're going to hold a 21-point lead and just dominate the game from beginning to end.
Yeah. But their schedule, I was just looking at their schedule, and this is why part of the reason I picked them to go to the ACC title game. And it actually makes me feel even better about it now. They don't play Miami. They don't play Florida State. Clemson was their big game as far as teams go on paper. They have Virginia Tech, Duke, Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Pitt. Those are all very winnable for Georgia Tech. They will be favored Pitt, in every single one of those games.
Pitt could give them trouble, and Syracuse could give them trouble. But really, other than that I'm on board with you, Jake. I like you said, very winnable games, and Georgia Tech should be favored in just about all of them. Tennessee, Mississippi State, Jake. Really fun game. I'm kind of on the Mississippi State train, man. I kind of am. I kind of just am like, I really like what Jeff Lebby's done with that program, and I think the Netflix documentary really kind of sold me on what he's doing. I'm glad that my feeling whenever I watch that SEC documentary, I'm glad my feeling for him is actually translating on the field because it's like, yeah, that's what a head coach is supposed to look like. My eyes aren't deceiving me here. It's not camera trick. It's not Hollywood tricks, you know. But I really going into Mississippi State, going into Starkville for Texas this year scares the hell out of me. I'll just say that.
I think it's the fact Mississippi State is not ranked is a joke. They should
be ranked after this week. They should be they're a top 25 team, period. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. They're a top 25 team.
I would say they would beat Notre Dame without much hesitation.
Sure.
And several, like BYU was ranked. They are ranked, and they just barely beat Colorado today. I would pick Mississippi State over BYU. I think this Mississippi State is a top 25 team in the country. And that game in Starkville, which is more and more enticing me to buy tickets and go to it, even though it's like a 10-hour drive if I drive there. But that's going to be a huge game, and that environment's going to be crazy. That fan base is pumped up that they have a football team that's worth cheering for this year. That's going to be a really tough game for Texas. Mississippi State's a good football team this year, and that I think that's one of the toughest matchups left on Texas's schedule. I mean, yes, OU's tough. At the Swamp is tough. Georgia, A&M, those are all hard teams, but that at Mississippi State game, especially since it's on the road. I wish we could have gotten them on the road last year when they weren't good and got them at home this year. But that's not how it works. So that'll be a really big matchup. And if Mississippi State can win some more games, that could even be a college game day type matchup because it give them an excuse to go down there.
Yeah. Jake, Illinois, USC, 34-32. Illinois kind of had to come back a little bit. I mean, this one was back and forth all game long. It was a really fun game to watch. Kind of a weird game to say, like, this is your Big Ten now. It being in the 30s and it being USC versus Illinois of all things. But yeah, it is a Big Ten matchup, and it went down in the books as a great one. Game-winning field goal for the Illinois kicker, and Illinois gets back on the winning side of things after Indiana just took them to the woodshed last week. Big for that program, big for the team to come out and win that game at home in front of its home fans is kind of a rebound game. USC, a lot of people were high on USC, Jake, going into this game. Yeah,
I picked USC to win this game. One of the few that I missed on betting wise this weekend. And I mean, it's just kind of the same story it's always with Lincoln Riley. The defense still not good.
Yep.
I couldn't believe that they took a shot.
They looked improved until they played Illinois.
And I just can't believe they took that shot in the end zone when they did and left a minute plus with Illinois having all their timeouts. As a head coach, it's your job to know what your team is. And at that point, at the very least within that game, your defense isn't getting a stop when all Illinois needs is a field goal. I just thought that was so questionable to go, yeah, you need to score when you can. But right when they scored, I said, well, they lost. Yeah. Unless Illinois misses a field goal, they lost because they left way too much time on the field and they weren't getting stops. So that to me was the biggest question mark. As a coach, your defense isn't good. You don't leave time. You leave as little time on the board as you can when you score. And if you don't score because of it, guess what? You would have lost anyways. That's what Lincoln Riley defenses are. That's what they've been his whole career.
Jake, I don't remember. Ole Miss, LSU. What was the over on that? Do you remember what that line was? Because I want to see if the over actually hit. It did not hit? Okay, yeah. But Ole Miss, LSU, one of those games, Jake, where we talk about it is hard to go on the road in conference play and get a win. And so, kudos to LSU for doing, or kudos to Tennessee for doing so. We'll get into this game shortly, but kudos to Alabama for taking on Georgia, and then also Oregon winning on the road in a conference game, night whiteout game. But yeah, this LSU offense has some serious problems, and every reporter should be asking Brian Kelly this week, what's up with the run game? What's up with the offense? Because now that they lost,
trying to run it this game either.
Now that they've lost and they're no longer spoiled, I think they're validated in being able to ask Brian Kelly whatever the hell they want to ask him.
LSU was very lucky this game looks as close as it was. It was not a close game. Ole Miss
LSU's defense is the only thing keeping them from being a relevant team this year, because other than that, they are bad.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the stat sheet. Ole Miss was 8 of 16 on third downs, 50%. That's a good rate. LSU was 2 of 11. Total yards, 256 for LSU. Horrible. Especially when you consider what their offense was supposed to be this year. 484 for Ole Miss. Ole Miss averaged 4 yards a carry. They were able to run the ball with success. LSU averaged 2.8. Really, the main thing that kept them in this game in LSU was the officials.
Yeah.
14 penalties for 109 yards, a couple turnovers. If not for those penalties and those turnovers, Ole Miss wins this game by 20. They look like the much better football team.
They dominated, and every time I looked up, we went out, had the girls with me this weekend, and we went out to a pizza place and kind of on the river in Waco, and every time I looked up at a TV screen that had this LSU Ole Miss game on, Ole Miss had the ball. I don't even know if LSU had the ball. I don't know if I watched a possession where LSU like went on a long scoring drive or anything like that. I mean, it was.
And what's hurting LSU is they can't run the football. And so guess what teams are doing? They're going, you're not going to push the ball down the field on us. We're going to stop you from taking deep shots. 21 completions for Nussmeier, 197 yards.
That's crazy.
Not what you would expect from an LSU offense.
Not at all. Not at all. All right, Jake. Alabama, Georgia. Alabama goes into Georgia, into Athens for the first time. For Georgia to lose, I think they were on a 28-game home win streak. What was it?
Kirby Smart was 52-4 or 52-3. One of those two heading into this game
at home, which is just an absurd record. But Alabama goes in, wins that game. Kirby Smart officially has an Alabama problem, not a Nick Saban problem, an Alabama problem. Kalen DeBoer has beat him back-to-back years, and Kalen DeBoer, his job security. It's kind of like A&M beating Texas or something. Or it's more like Oklahoma beating Texas, where you win that game. Boy, does that win you a whole lot of slack in the short leash that you did have with the fan base and with the donors and the boosters for that program. Kalen DeBoer back maybe on a cooler seat, not nearly as hot after winning this game on the road against Georgia. Big time for these two coaches. Now Georgia will be back. And now they're going to have that chip on their shoulder that Kirby Smart likes to put there, and they'll be a much better team moving forward. But I'll tell you what, I think that the SEC this year is more up for grabs than maybe it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you look at schedules, unfortunately, A&M would probably be all these A&M fans have talked about Texas' schedule being weak. Their schedule is cupcake.
Yeah.
And so they're certainly going to be a favorite going down the stretch because they don't play Georgia. They don't play Alabama. All they play is Texas.
Yep.
They play LSU. I just don't think LSU's a good football team, but it's A&M. They're in their September national championship season that will come crashing down. But here's a stat for you. DeBoer against Sarkisian, Lanning, and Kirby Smart's undefeated. I believe he's 8-0.
Yeah.
That's
impressive.
Also, Kalen DeBoer has the best record for an Alabama head coach to start his career through this many games since Frank Thomas in 1932.
But Saban.
Yeah. The fact his seat was warm was ridiculous, and I bought into Alabama in this game, which, by the way, they got shut out in the second half and won this game. It wasn't an offensive show for them. Their offense went silent.
Ty Simpson played a hell of a game in that first half. Ty Simpson looked really good. That offense was moving in the first half. Georgia made their adjustments at halftime, as they should have. Played really well defensively throughout the rest of the game. But just an all-around really good coaching performance, I thought, from Kalen DeBoer, and he deserves his flowers.
Yeah, I mean, this Alabama team did not give up after that Florida State game, and I thought people were overreacting to it. Heck, I thought Alabama's going to shoot up the polls in this game after this game, and they deserve to because they were ranked higher than Florida State. They were at 17 because of game one, and they deserve to be that because they didn't have a marquee win. I mean, they beat UL Monroe and a really bad Wisconsin team, and they beat the snot out of both of them. But this game now is like, okay, this team's legit. Now, granted, Alabama, their schedule does not get any easier. They got to play Vanderbilt at Missouri, who I think Missouri might be one of the best teams in the SEC. And the way their schedule shapes up, they could be a favorite to go to the SEC title game.
Very correct.
They have one of the best running games. I think they have the best running back in all of college football in Ahmad Hardy, and I don't think it's particularly close. They also have Tennessee. They have at South Carolina. South Carolina can figure it out. They have LSU and Oklahoma, and then they obviously close out in the Iron Bowl against Auburn. So, tough schedule for Alabama, but they're a good football team, and they're going to be very much in the race. And I said that, this was going to be kind of my last hurrah of seeing, Kalen DeBoer's being underrated at Alabama in many ways, and luckily it paid off because I took Alabama money line. They were able to win this game, and like you said, Georgia has a Alabama problem. They lost to them last year. They lost them this year. I think everyone thought they got the monkey off the back whenever they beat them in an SEC title game, but Alabama's pretty much owned that series. And it's kind of funny because the way the SEC works out is you start getting these teams who get these who get these other teams' numbers. For a long time, Alabama had Tennessee. Now Tennessee's kind of had Alabama's number. Georgia's had Alabama's had Georgia's number. Georgia's had Texas's number.
Texas has Alabama's number.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's the SEC this year, like you said, very, very up for grabs. Feels like the national championship picture still very up for grabs. Right now, the favorite would probably be Miami or Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State's defense, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I was going to say, because that will seg me right into our next game, Oregon at Penn State. And I was going to talk a little bit about Oregon. They looked the part the first 3 quarters of play. And then for whatever reason, one of the worst collapses, maybe it was because I had Oregon money line, maybe, I don't know, but was really stressing out in the fourth quarter of that game. And kudos to Penn State, but Drew Aller, time for the conversation, Jake.
Drew Aller is ass. There we go.
I repeat,
just had to megaphone that one out there.
I think you have arch enemies in both the NFL and the college football landscape. You've got,
and I'm correct on both of them.
And you've got Bo Nix and you've got Drew Aller. And I'll be honest with you, Jake, Penn State chose the wrong quarterback whenever they let Prabula go to Missouri.
No one's talking about this, by the way. I haven't seen anyone talk about this. If they have Bo Prabula, they probably win this game. Their defense is really good. If they had a threat at quarterback, they're a different ball team.
So, Jake, if obviously hindsight 2020, that's obvious.
Hindsight 2020, I would have made the decision last year.
That's okay. That's what I was going to ask you, though. In the playoffs, where Prabula is like, all right, look, I'm going to transfer. If you're James Franklin and you think that Prabula is better, do you just say, you know what? How about you start Boise State if that will keep you here? Or was it? Do we think that there was a predetermined he's gone no matter what situation?
It was predetermined because for some reason everyone is in love with Drew Aller because he's tall and looks good in shorts and throws the ball far. He is Christian Hackenberg 2.0.
He is.
He is the same quarterback as Christian Hackenberg, maybe worse in college, honestly. He's just not impressive. He's a pocket passer that's not that good of a passer. And I never understood that. I've been on this train. This isn't a new train I've been on. I was on this train all of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Just being like, I don't get Drew Aller. He's had one good game in his career, and that was in the Big Ten championship in a loss against Oregon, where he threw 2 picks.
Yeah. No, Jake, I completely agree with you. I'm not against it by any means, but Oregon comes away in double overtime. Man, what a couple of plays. I'll tell you what, Dante Moore coming into his own. There's a couple of times, Jake, where it's like, all right, he looks like a first-year starter. He looks like a guy who's still young, still learning the system, still trying to learn how to play at the college football level. But there are also glimpses of once he does get it figured out, because there are some signs that he does have it figured out, he's a stud, man. And he is going to be your typical Oregon quarterback who's going to be putting up big numbers. I don't know if this year is the year for Oregon to go all the way, but they will probably be my favorite next year if he sticks around.
Yeah, I mean, Dante Moore's 29 of 39, 248 yards and 3 touchdowns and no picks on the road at one of the most hostile environments you can be at.
In a whiteout primetime game.
Yeah. Drew Aller this year, by the way, just run down his passing totals by game. Nevada, 217. Florida International, 200. Villanova, 209. Oregon, 137. But last year, he must have been a stud since there was talk about him being the first overall pick, right? Yeah, he threw for over 300 yards once last year, and that was against USC. Or actually twice. Sorry, Kent State was the other one.
Kent State was the other, yeah.
In games against good opponents last year, Illinois, he threw for 135. He only threw for 148 against Wisconsin, threw for 146 against Ohio State in a loss, threw for 226 in that game that I said was probably the best game of his career against Oregon in a loss. In the playoffs, he threw for 127, 171, 135. This quarterback that played on Saturday against Oregon is just the same Drew Aller he's been his whole career. He's never gotten any better. Maybe he's gotten worse, but he's been the same quarterback. If you draft him, I'm not just talking in the first round. If you draft him, drugs.
You're wasting a draft pick is what you're doing.
Yeah, you're literally, and someone's gonna draft him in top 3 rounds because they'll go, well, he's tall and he's big.
got all the measurables.
He's got big hands. He throw ball far. Cool. So did Anthony Richardson. Where's that gotten the Colts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Jake. I'm not going to argue any counterpoints to it. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. We're going to start diving into Florida a little bit more as the season goes on, or as the week goes on. And we start getting a little bit more information going into this game, obviously coming off of a bye week. Not a whole lot to talk about over Texas, but Emmet Mosley, excited to have him back at practice. And what a week of college football that was. That's Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. Always like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. As always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.